everyone. Welcome to another Base Live event. I am Liz Prue, VP of Marketing here at Base. I am so excited in the middle of the week to bring you today's Base Live event, Breaking Out of Career Ruts with Rhonda Scharf. Rhonda is head of the Admins Rock movement, and she is a professional speaker, trainer, and consultant specializing in frontline administration. She is an absolute joy. I was so excited when we connected with her, and I'm really, really excited for this session today. Rhonda, I'll let you say hello and share a little bit more about yourself.
Hi, everybody. For those of you I don't know, I'm Rhonda Scharf. Great to see you. You're going to be learning a little bit more about me as we go through today's workshop, but I'm a former admin and turned professional speaker a long time ago. Normally, I would be on a plane and seeing you face to face, but we're live. We're just not face to face, and so nice to see everybody.
Awesome. And a couple of housekeeping items before I turn it over to Rhonda. As if you are new to Base Live, this is it's a very engaging environment, very supportive. We love to have you guys hopping into the chat, so please feel free to do so. Rhonda is going to be presenting a little bit, but it's going to be an engaging discussion. So she'll answer questions throughout the presentation, but we'll also have Q&A at the end, and I'll be monitoring the chat. So if you drop a question in there, I'll be sure if Rhonda doesn't answer while she's presenting, we'll get to it at the end of the session. And if, just keep popping in the chat, have fun. We'll run about 45 minutes, no longer than an hour. And if you have to hop off, this recording is saved in the announcements tab of our Facebook group. And of course, we have our playlist on YouTube. We like to keep these available for you guys whenever you're free to watch them. We know with quarantine still going on and all that fun stuff, time is a little nuttier than normal right now. But for those of you that are joining today, we're excited to have you here. Yeah. Alrighty, I will turn it over to you, Rhonda. Have fun.
Thank you very much. And thanks everyone for joining us as we're talking about breaking out of career ruts. And as I see, I've got the chat open. I've got I can't see who's saying these things, but I can see that you're chatting with me. So this is, as Liz said, going to be very engaging. And I'm willing to bet that part of the reason you signed up for today is not just because it's great entertainment and education, is there is the potential that might be in a career rut, right? So, what do we do when we get in a career rut? Like, I mean, do we want to grow? Do we want to be, chief of staff? Do we just want something different? The fact that you're here tells me you might be looking for something different. And a lot of the times we're looking for something different is because we didn't necessarily look for this in the first place, or we're looking to break out of the rut. So for those of you that know me, you know that for those of you that don't learn, I'm from a small town outside of Ottawa, Ontario. As I look out my window, we got this much snow on the ground, and I'm a rural farm girl. And so and I'm 55, just to put it out there. So what I want you to think about is when you were growing up, boy or girl, doesn't matter, New Jersey, awesome. You were growing up, let's say 12, 13 years old. What did you want to be when you were an adult? Now, I'm 55, so that meant that I grew up in, sort of the 70s, 80s kind of thing, and some of you can relate. I see upstate New York there. The box that I grew up said that I could be a teacher, a nurse, or a secretary. Those were sort of my options. So tell me what it was that you wanted to do when you were growing up. And so for men where I grew up, farming is first. And so for those of you that are in agriculture, you know that there's a very big difference between farming and ranching. And farming doesn't pay the bills, ranching does. I grew up in a farm community. My dad did not have a farm, but my grandfather did, just a small little farm. Nice to see where everybody's coming in, which is awesome. And so for men growing up, farming was first, but farming doesn't pay the bills. Ottawa is Canada's capital. So it's a government city. So lots of dads wore shirts and ties and went to work. My dad didn't. My dad was an electrician. So he went to work dirty and he came home dirty. And when I was growing up, what I wanted to be, jokingly say that what I really wanted to be when I was a teenager was Mrs. John Bon Jovi. I still do, for the record, still going for that. But I wanted to be a teacher. And I'm sure a lot of you sort of thought when you were growing up, you wanted to be a teacher. We see people from all over the world, which is awesome. And teaching, first of all, I'm sure many of us are very glad we're not teaching these days because homeschooling your kids has to be hard. And it pays well in Canada, and they deserve every dime they get. And the year that I was a senior in high school, it was harder to get into teachers college than it was to get into medical school. So I took teaching off my list. The next thing that was on my list was to be a nurse. And I actually did go to nursing school. I went to the local hospital here in Ottawa. I wore the little white hat. I wore the white starched uniform and white pantyhose. Ugh, I looked like the dead body, right? And my parents were very proud of me, but I realized I didn't want to be a nurse for the rest of my life. I was missing something that all healthcare professionals need to have, and all do have: compassion. So that meant I was going to be a great secretary, right? Teaching, nursing, secretary. And I started my job as a receptionist. Give me, a thumbs up if you've been a receptionist at some point, or give me some love if you've been that. And I loved it. But I fell into my job accidentally. And I'm willing to bet that a lot of you have done the same, regardless of how you came to do whatever it is that you do. It was an accident. And when things are an accident, it's really easy to get into a rut, because it wasn't necessarily we went to university for it. It wasn't necessarily, it was just a really good job that paid the bills, right? Got your teaching degree. Well done. And so, for those of you that are from rural, wherever you are in the world, dirt roads get ruts in them. The more you drive back and forth exactly the same way, they get deep ruts in them. And once the pattern starts driving the same way over and over again, it makes the groove deeper and really hard to get out of. Our career's the same way. Our habits are habits because they are easier in the moment. It's easier to stay here than it is to leave. It's easier to complain than it is to do something about it. So we need to rewire ourselves so that we see things different. I'm loving all the love that I see and where everybody's from too. And so the reality is our habits, our ruts in our career happen because we didn't do anything about it. We just said, it's okay, it's paying the bills. So using the chat, for those of you that can honestly admit that you're in a rut, tell me how long you've been in a rut. Because what we need to be able to do is find the intersection of what we love to do and where we excel. Now, for those of us that are still working from home in the pandemic, I'm sure that working from home has become a rut. When it first happened 10 months ago, if you can believe it, almost 11 months ago, for most of us, probably many of us were really excited going, I can hardly wait to work from home. Too long, right? I can hardly wait to work from home. I'm so excited. Now, 10 and a half months into it, you're like, I'm in a rut. I don't even get dressed in the morning. I only have a shower because I might have to go online, right? And so it's easy to get into that rut. And I see a lot of you have been there for a long time. Nice to see some great familiar names there for sure. And so today, actually, there was a study done in January, which is where we are right now, 2021, for those of you watching the replay. More than a third of workers are actively or casually looking for a new job. So what we need to stop doing is looking for magic solutions. This is going to take work. There is no magic formula. You may have fell into your career, whatever your career is, accidentally, but it's not going to be a magic formula to get out of that rut, because it's very easy to feel stuck and demotivated and under pressure to answer all the big career questions. What do you want to be when you grow up? I'm 55. I don't think I'm growing up yet, but we are going to ask you a lot of questions. It's going to take some work. It's kind of like, the standard time management technique. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? So as you can see, Confucius said, choose a job you love and you'll never have to work another day in your life. Bullcrap, right? That is so not true. That sounds fantastic, but it's not true. Christy Civic, who many of you know and I love, she says, and she's so true, that when something you love becomes work, it fundamentally and unavoidably changes the way that you interact with it. So I just recently watched the Tiger Woods special on HBO or whatever channel it's playing where you are. And first of all, I love golf. And Tiger was raised to be this incredible golfer. And I'm willing to bet that somewhere around the age of 12, golf stopped being something he loved and became work. I watched the special on Taylor Swift in Netflix. I'm willing to bet that writing songs for her is work. So just because you love it doesn't mean that it's not work. So that's really great advice from Confucius, but baloney, right? So what we have to really look at is where is our engagement in what we do? And how engaged are you in your role, in your company, in your life? Like I see the comment, you'd like to teach in an academic institution. That's okay. Like that may be the engagement that you're looking for. So as far as companies are concerned, when engagement is high, revenue is 2.5 times higher. Employee turnover is 40% lower, and customer satisfaction is 12% higher. So in just a study that was done this month, there was 600 American businesses that had between 50 and 500 employees. And 63% of those companies that answered the survey said that retaining employees is actually harder than hiring them. So according to Gallup's State of the Global Workplace, only 15% of employees are engaged in the workplace. Again, this is a January 2021 stat. So 15%, if you do the math, that's 1 in 8 people are engaged in what they do. So what is it that makes us sing? What is it that gets us out of that rut? And a lot of people would say, I'd love my job more if I got paid more. Tell me a yes, does more money make you love your job more, really? I mean, is money enough for you? Because for me, it's not. So yes, I want more money. Everybody wants more money too, but money is not the panacea. Money is not the extra that's going to make the difference, right? So if you're thinking money is going to make me more engaged, it's not true. So thanks, Alexandra. I totally agree with you. Money's not going to do the trick. It might make you happy for this much time, but long term, it's not really going to make you happy. Whatever country you're in, when you got your government stimulus check, or when you got some, not all countries got them, but when you got some money from the government, did you like your government anymore? No, right? So it really is not the answer. So the number one key statistically to engagement is the relationship with your manager or your executive. Now, what's interesting is statistically it says that remote workers are typically more engaged than employees that are on site. That's hard to believe right now, right? But usually it's a little bit of a choice. Right now, some of us don't have a choice. And we need to celebrate things with our coworkers, whether it's birthdays, whether it's, a sunny day, whether that somebody has a new puppy or a grandbaby. We need to celebrate all that stuff. So identifying what you love about your job and what you hate about your job is important to understanding why we don't feel engaged. So in order to get you out of your rut, I've got some important questions for you to ask yourself. And the first one is to ask yourself, what is at the root of the problem? So the fact that so many of you admitted to me that you are in a rut and have been for a while is the first step. All of you have said that money is not everything. Absolutely. It's a very short little shot in the arm, but it doesn't make you love what you do anymore. So it's not about money. Money's nice, but that's not the reason you're in a rut. And so what is the root of the problem? And admitting that you are in a rut is part of, and admitting that you're no longer passionate about your job. Like, think about when you started your job, what were you all excited about? What could you, look where I'm working. Like, maybe you were totally excited, I get to work for Base. I get to work for Google. I get to work for, Home Depot. Who cares where you work, right? But you were really excited about it at some point. So it's okay to admit that you're no longer there. So the way that you figure out what is at the root of being in this rut is a really important thing, is ask yourself, first of all, what are your values about the company that you work for and what you do? So what is it that attracted you to your job in the first place? Might have been the money, but then we just admitted that money is not the issue. It might have been that you worked at that company with somebody that is a good friend. They recommended you get there. Maybe it was the executive that you were supporting. Maybe it was the hours that you were working. Maybe it was your commute. Now you maybe don't have a commute. Maybe it was the benefits that the company provided. I'm based, normally I spend the summer months in Canada and the winter months in Florida because I'm a true snowbird. I don't like the cold. I love the snow. I don't like the cold. This year I am spending it in Canada. I am following all the proper rules, and it's hard. But I have a team that works with me. My executive assistant right now is my husband. Think about that for a second. How much do you love your significant other? Do you love them enough to not only agree to spend the rest of your life with them, but do you want to work with them too? And some of you have been sharing a home office with your partner, and it's not awesome, right? So Warren is his name. And for those of you that have seen my other workshops, you know I love to pick on Warren, and Warren loves to be picked on. If we're friends on Facebook, you'll see that he loves that. And so Warren's worked with me for 6 years, but I've been a professional speaker and trainer specializing in administrative professionals for almost 30. And I've always had an assistant, needed one, right? I love what I do, but I needed an assistant. I'm smart enough to know that we need that. And so a bunch of years ago, I had a woman by the name of Caroline who worked with me. Now, Caroline, we worked together for about 7 or 8 years, for a long time. And what worked really well is the flexibility that my job offers. So I work internationally. I'm based in the Eastern time zone, but I work internationally. So her hours were very flexible, and she had young kids in school. And so when her kids were off work for spring break or summer vacation, back when we used to do things like that, she didn't have to come to the office to work. You know, we would manage, or she would work from home. If she had a kid that was sick, she would work from home. I traveled, past tense, most of the time. So she worked alone all the time. That worked really well for her. If she needed to take somebody to a doctor appointment, she would go. All of that worked really well. It was a part-time job that she got her off. She loved it. Caroline's kids got a little bit older. Her life changed. Many of our lives changed. And she found herself as a single mom. And she realized, as much as she loved my job, it didn't give her what she needed anymore. She needed full-time hours. She needed benefits. She needed more of a job than I had. So she just didn't love working with me anymore. And it wasn't about me. It was about the job. It didn't give her what she needed anymore. So think about who you are right now at 1:18 p.m. time on the 27th of January in 2021. Who are you right now? What do you need? And what is at the root of your problems? You want to think granular. You want to think beyond your titles and tasks. So sit down and journal. Sometimes some of us might need a bottle of wine each to sort of get to what you're really thinking, to open up those blocks, thinking, I should be happy. I have an amazing job. I make good money. I'm not happy. Like, what is the problem? So sit down and reflect to yourself, you know, what is it that, almost like talking to a marriage counselor, what is it that changed? Look at what's happened in your personal life and pick apart the problems. Because what we want to do is become resilient to temptation. We want to make sure that we're really looking at what is it that we're passionate about? What do we need to be engaged in what we do? And we need an understanding, honestly, of what our priorities and talents are. The whole bottle, absolutely. What motivates you right now? Priorities change. What is important to you right now? If you've got kids and they are not in school and it is important that they get an education, right now they may be your biggest priority, and you find yourself incredibly frustrated with your company because you can't do both, and you're in a rut with your job, you're in a rut with your kids, you're in a rut with your life. You know, experiment with different areas of your work. Ask yourself, am I just bored or am I really not happy? So ask yourself, what are you good at? What do you enjoy? You know, I love, as you got my previous quote, I love wine. I really love wine. But a couple years ago, Warren and I went with friends of ours out to Napa Valley in California. And that's just, and Warren and I went to Italy on our honeymoon. Like, we love wine. And so we decided that every day we were going to do the wine tours and taste. And we were like in heaven, except by day 4, I'm like, you know what? I don't want any more wine. This is all amazing. I can't afford to buy it all, but this got old really fast. So that's not what I want to do, right? 3 times a year, absolutely. I love to sit and read a book. But, you know, if you live alone in this pandemic, and in Ontario, the province where I live, we're on a stay-at-home order. So, like, how many hours a day can you sit there and read a book? My mom is 74. She lives alone. She did work prior to the pandemic, but she's found herself allergic to all that spray, which is pretty awful. So she's not able to work. She works at a golf course typically, obviously not in January. But she said, I thought that I would love, you know, a couple of months sitting on the couch just reading to my heart's content. She said, I'm so tired of reading. So, you know, do you love to organize? Are you done organizing? Do you love to create? You're done creating. So just because you enjoy it doesn't mean that that's what you want your job to be, right? So what is it that you really enjoy about your job? Don't ask your friends what you're good at. They're going to tell you what you want to hear. They're not going to be honest with you. I have a best friend who loves to sing, and I can't tell her she's a good singer. You know what I mean? You're just not going to be, I'm not going to tell her she's a bad singer. I'm not going to be honest, right? The relationship is too important. So define your dream job based on your values. So look at your current job, write each one of your tasks on a post-it note. You know, grab those post-it notes that we all have around and stick it on the wall. It's almost like you're doing a project management task. And if you could take every task, travel, booking, you know, conference room, like all the stuff you hate, as well, you know, budgeting, as well as all the stuff you like, put every single task on a post-it note and stick it on the wall. Then wave a magic wand and take away the tasks that you don't like. And then look at the tasks that you like, and maybe even identify as, I don't really mind that, versus I actually love that. You know, what's there, what's missing, what could be different. So when I look at my job, I love creating new PowerPoints. This is very basic PowerPoint because I know that we're streaming and I didn't want it to be too complicated, but I love creating new PowerPoint. I don't love always looking for the new content to go with it. Isn't that funny? I can't do one without the other, right? So what you want to do is really look at the big picture. So what is it you get from your current job? What is it that it gives you? Now, we already said money wasn't the panacea, right? So what do you get from your job mentally? How does it challenge you? Maybe the reason you're stuck in a rut is you're actually no longer challenged. Although I'm willing to bet the last 10 months have certainly challenged us. Maybe you're challenged too much, learning and pivoting too quickly. You know, what do you get physically? So normally I would be in front of you in a room and I'd be walking around, and I am now in my chair constantly. I have realized that on a normal day, without any conscious effort, I travel less than 1,000 steps a day. Well, I am not okay with that, right? So I've now started making sure that I get a minimum of 6,000 steps a day, which sounds terrible because back in the days when I was in airports and walking around the buildings, and I would hit 10,000 steps by noon. So I'm getting anything physically from working home right now. Maybe you have the ability to work out every day. So what are you physically getting that you potentially physically didn't get before? What are you socially getting from your job? And that certainly has changed for a lot of us. Maybe that's part of the reason we're in a rut, is because for those of us that are extroverts, we realize that working virtually is hard. It's not social enough for a lot of you. And what's interesting is I have a bunch of friends that are introverts, and they said this is not enough for them. And so it depends on what the lockdown rules are in your state and country, right? Or your province or wherever you are. We're totally been in lockdown for quite a while, and I'm socially starved. And because I'm socially starved, it impacts my love for my job, because I think here I sit and talk to nobody all day long. I mean, I know I'm talking to you, but I'm not actually hearing you back, right? I'm seeing you, and I appreciate that. So what are you getting intellectually from your job? What are you potentially spiritually from your job, depending on where you work, right? So think big picture and think long term. What took away that passion, and will that change? Is it a person? Is it a role? Is it the pandemic? You know, so every day before you walk away from your office, whether you're physically in the office or you're at home, you need to say to yourself, what 3 good things happened to me at work today? What are 3 things that I really liked? And one of my things is going to be, I'm not the only one to admit that I'm socially starving. I'm not physically starving. That's changed. But I'm socially starving. And I'm going to say that I admitted it out loud, and I was vulnerable. And that was a good thing that happened for me today. And so 2 other things that, you know, every day, 3 good things that happened at work. Remember why you started the job that you're doing. Was it by accident, or was there something about the job that really gave you what you needed? Go back to the beginning and find out what changed. So I'm on my second marriage. Warren is my husband. I jokingly say that I'm a serial marrier, right? Warren and I have been married for 14 years, but I was married previously for 15 years. So I say to Warren, this is our 14th anniversary. He should be getting nervous about now. And when my first marriage started to crumble, he's the father of my two children. He's a wonderful man. We are still very good friends. I still love him. I'm not in love with him. There's a very big difference. So we went to couples counseling. And at the time, one of the books that was really popular was Dr. Phil's relationship coaching, relationship something. Anyway, so basically what Dr. Phil taught us to do, as well as the counselor that we went to, was to go back to the beginning of our relationship and to really remember what brought us together, remember the love and the excitement that we had, and ask ourselves what changed. Do the same thing with your job. What was it at the beginning that you were really excited about? What was it that you could hardly wait to almost get to work every day? Remember that this working that we do is a marathon, not a sprint. I know you've heard that before. And right now, this marathon of pandemic is really hurting everything. It's hard on relationships. It's hard on our job satisfaction. It's hard on everything. Is that really what the challenge is right now? So focus on the people and the activities that reward you. But as the expression, put your own oxygen mask on first. Take care of yourself so that you can take care of everyone else. And what you need to really do is look at that big picture, but also challenge yourself. Because depending on where you are in the world, this pandemic is not going away anytime soon. New Zealand announced today, for those of you, hey, to my Kiwi friends, that they are actually closing the borders to all other countries to the end, at least, of this year, 2021. Which means we're getting back to normal anytime soon, although New Zealand inside seems a lot more normal than what we're going through. Your company might have said you're on work from home at least so we get 60% of the country immunized. So we need to challenge ourselves to find ways to make it through the next 8, 9, 15 months, who knows, of this being a weight on us that's taking away from our love of our job as well. And so what you want to do is find that optimal state for you, that when the challenge is just right, and it's not too easy and it's not too hard. Now, since the pandemic started, I've delivered over 150 events virtually. The good news is that I was delivering virtually long before COVID happened. So this challenge for me to move to the virtual platform has not been too hard at all. And I continue to challenge myself to do more. But I know that for some people, it's been a huge challenge to try to connect virtually, right? So ask yourself, have you moved into autopilot? Are you just going through the motions? Are you just trying to survive? Is that why the engagement is gone? Or are you just bored out of your skull? Are you overwhelmed? Like, what is really the challenge, and how can the challenge as to why we're in a rut, and what do we need to do to get out of it? So the perfect state of when you're working, when your mind is completely focused and you're thoroughly enjoying what you're doing, is something called flow, Flow. And so flow is when you sort of get into something and all of a sudden the time just completely switches. So I typically get into flow when I'm delivering workshops. So we're at 30 minutes into the workshop and I went, oh, 30 minutes, all of a sudden this 30 minutes disappeared. I know that for me, I used to look forward, and I will in the future, to getting on an airplane. I write a lot. I write for a lot of different articles, a lot of different magazines. I have a weekly newsletter that goes out every Tuesday. And if you want to subscribe to that, just send me an email. And I write articles for admin professionals every week. I love to write. And when I would get on an airplane, it was almost like, boom, the wires would just fire. There's no way that I was going to sleep. I'd open up my laptop and boom, I could create. Where is that for you? What is that amazing state? So what you want to do is challenge yourself so that you don't get stuck into the rut and you can get into it. Cooking. So we probably at all point have experimented with these deliver home boxes. So I use Good Food. I don't know if it's just Canadian one or not, but there's Chef's Plate, there's Blue Apron, there's Hello Fresh, there's all of them, right? That challenged how I cook. And I keep all the recipes, and now I play Master Chef every night at home, right? But it challenged the same old, same old. Mix it up. I joined Beachbody On Demand so that I can do different workouts every day, not get stuck in I'm typically a runner. I like to run. And so running is very monotonous, very boring if that's all you do. So now we do different workouts every day. It hurts me to raise my arms right now, So for those of you that are in a position to be able to do that, maybe you want to plan a vacation, do something different. We're not able to in Ontario right now, but I can still plan for when it happens. So we have our home in Florida, as I mentioned, and we've been going to Florida for many years, but last year we built a new home and we lived in it for 3 weeks until our prime minister said, come home. So we've been taking our evenings and planning, what do we still need to do for that house? We need to, I don't know when I'm going to get back to my Fort Myers home, but I'm going to get there. And so we're challenging ourselves and what are we going to do to make it our home? Challenge yourself every day to find what you love about your job. If you can't find 3 good things at the end of the day, we need to work harder on that. Years ago, I went on vacation. I'm combining a whole lot of things, and a huge challenge for me is we got in tanks and we went swimming with the sharks. I was scared to death, but I did it. And so what you need to do is challenge yourself at work, push yourself more. Maybe you've just gotten bored. Maybe one of the ways that you can challenge yourself is about being or finding a mentor. So anytime I create new workshops, I love doing the PowerPoint, as I said, it causes me to think differently and it challenges me, not just things that I take for granted. So maybe if you're delivering a lunch and learn, maybe you want to summarize, like maybe you know how to use BASE really well and people are like, hey, well, what do we need to know? You know what, let me do a little workshop online and let me show you what I use it for, and show people what you know. It's really going to challenge you. So community is really, really important to engagement. Look at the BASE community, look at your Facebook community, look at your YouTube community, your LinkedIn. I'm on all of them, by the way. Please find me. If you want to be entertained every day, I have my Facebook profile, which is just me, and you're going to hear lots about wine there. If you find my business page, which is Rhonda Scharf on the Right Track, every morning I put 1 or 2 funny things up there. I provide a lot of value, and that's my community. So Admins Rock is my hashtag, as Liz said. If you want one of those stickers, just send me an email and I'll mail you a sticker. I have mine on the back of my phone. I have it on the back of my laptop. So because Admins Rock, get that up right, Admins Rock, and that's the community that I love and breathe. What's your community? Is it your company? Is it your church? Is it your family? Do you belong to lots of different communities online just to get, for those of us that are socially starved, get networking? It's different than it used to be, so it's not as uncomfortable. For those of you, social anxiety is suffered by 75% of people. So that's, people afraid to go to a conference and meet all the people. Well, it's a whole lot easier to network online. So right now, Leah says she could use a new mentor. You know what? Just don't, if you go and ask somebody, will you be my mentor? It's a little bit weird, gotta be honest. And if you're looking for a formalized mentoring agreement, most people that are in a formalized mentoring agreement, unless you work at the same company, there's money that's going to exchange hands. So maybe all you need to do is find another admin and say, do you mind if I ask you a couple questions every once in a while? I'm stuck on how to do this. I've never used, Zoom before. I can't get Teams to work, or how can you help me? And I'm glad you love my puns and jokes on Facebook. Thank you. They're there to make everybody laugh. So if you're looking for something, that's where you'll find them, on my business page. So get networking. You don't want to stick your head in the sand. You need to ask for help or support. Like me being very vulnerable that I'm socially starved, you're going to see me on social media several times a day live. I use the scheduling tools and schedule all those as well, because sometimes I'm in the middle of a workshop like I am right now. But it's important to recognize when we need help. And it's important to recognize when we can offer help. Maybe you're not stuck in a rut. Maybe you figured out how to get out of that rut. Maybe you know how to challenge yourself. Not all of us do. So offer to somebody, say, I went to this workshop, or I attended the BASE thing, or in chat and say, I attended the BASE live on how to get out of a rut. Here's something I did that might be able to help others. Or use this chat right now that you're on. Here's something that I did. Somebody used to volunteer a lot. You missed that experience. How can you volunteer online? And there's Stephanie reaching out to anybody, anytime. That's community. So thank you for those of you doing that. It really makes a difference. You don't want to stick your head in the sand. You want to make sure that you're really looking at what it takes to be challenged and to be good. And that means we need to stretch. I'm not that good. I can't stretch like that. Take a risk. Go online. Offer exactly as some of you did right there to help others. For those of you watching the chat in whatever stream you're in, write down the names that you don't know and go connect with them on LinkedIn. and then send them a message and say, I saw that you were offering, a little bit of help. Can I ask you a question or two? Obviously, right? So what we also have to realize, and a lot of us have come to this recognition and where we can help others as well, is the grass is not always greener on the other side. It's just different grass. So we have to learn to stretch. And it doesn't always mean that we need to leave our company, that we need to leave our relationships, but it just means we have to learn more to keep ourselves engaged. I've always said that the day I stop learning, I hope is the day that I die, because I don't ever want to stop learning. You know what? I still, as a seasoned EA, but still feel the need to find a mentor. I'm a professional speaker who's been around for a long time, but I still have mentors. I still learn all the time. So what have you got to lose? Like somebody said, volunteer. Volunteering is different. You can I know that in the hospital here in Ottawa, where I live, they always used to have, it's usually retired people that are greeters in the hospital, and they come up to you and they're, Ottawa Civic Hospital, how can I help you? What are you looking for? And so obviously they're not doing that now, but what they are is they're coming in virtual. So people will walk in the front doors of the hospital, which you're not allowed to do, and there's a monitor there, and somebody who's live will say, hi, how may I help you? Well, and they're doing it from the comfort of their own home. Maybe that's what you need to do, right? Maybe you need to just chat with people that are in our long-term care facilities that just need someone to talk to. Maybe you need to talk to an EA who works at a really small company and he feels completely abandoned, right? So take a class. Lots of free education out there. Learn something. Learn how to take project management. Learn how to get your Microsoft certificate. Like learn minute taking. Learn all kinds of stuff that you didn't need to know before. Know what gives you energy and know what drains you energy. Because if you wait until you're ready to move, it's going to be too late. So what you want to do is really take the risk now and be willing to push it a little bit. Now, of course, this does mean that you need to stay positive. There's going to be some things that you take a risk and they're not as successful as you would like, but you learned, right? So there's two kinds of people in this world, people with positive energy and everybody else. So I want to be that positive energy. That's why I post things, funny things. That's why I'm like when I respond to your comments on any social media, it's me. I don't delegate that stuff out. It's part of my social starving, right? I create my own content, my PowerPoint, my marketing, because that's the stuff that I really like. So what is it in your job that you can do that you can be really positive about? Again, remember those 3 good things at your job every day. Warren and I, every night before we go to sleep, when we're in bed, we do this thing every night in bed. And sadly, it's not that thing. But we say, what 3 good things happened to you today? The very same way I talked about finding 3 good things that happened in your job. And we look back at the day and we say, okay, this went well, this went well. And we don't talk about anything that's negative. And so you want to challenge. And so for those of you that don't know any other EAs in your area, and for Jen, it's Windsor. My son lives right down the road in Chatham. But go online and you can connect with other EAs in Windsor, across the border, in Detroit if you want, in Ontario and Canada, across the world. There's lots of communities out there, and you'll be amazed at how giving they are. So build happiness into your career. Maybe that happiness is giving back. Maybe that happiness is asking. Maybe it's within the executive assistant community, and maybe it's outside of it. And stop feeling guilty for not being happy. So I'm working on a workshop that I'm delivering tomorrow. It's about stress and anxiety in times of crisis. I'm delivering it tomorrow. And a lot of people think, well, you just need to think positive. All the stress goes away if you just think positive. Well, baloney. So stop feeling guilty if you're not happy and start taking responsibility. Don't say to yourself, I just need to think happy and I'll be happy. No, that's not true. And so you need to find, what is it that I need to feel happy? Back to that marriage that failed. Like I said, really great guy. And I felt incredibly guilty because I wasn't happy. And I couldn't tell you why I wasn't happy until I started to look back as to what changed. What do I want? What do I not want? And I pulled it all apart. And I realized that what changed was me. It wasn't him. It wasn't the dreams that we originally had when we got married. It wasn't our children. It wasn't our life. All of that from the outside looked amazing. But what changed on the inside was me. And I needed to really be honest with myself and say, this is what's changed. So Jen, I really commend you for looking for other EAs, but you know what? Send me a connection on LinkedIn, send me a little note, and I will connect you with some other people, because I do know some EAs in the Windsor area for sure. And anywhere across the world. I work internationally. So being that honest is really important. Stop beating yourself up, because if on the outside you may have an amazing job, you may work for an incredible company, you may make more money than any other EA you know, you may have all the benefits, all the bells and whistles, and you're still not happy. That's okay. Stay positive and know that you can figure out what it is that's going to make you happy in the job. And one of the things that you really need to do is find those rose-colored glasses and go back and look at your things. Go back and look at your past and look at those times that you can look back and say, this was awesome. This point in my life was an amazing memory. I loved it. What was it that you loved? What was the secret sauce that made that really good? What made it so amazing? Ask yourself, where are you the most committed? Where you'll work overtime gladly. You'll get up at 6 in the morning because the brain says, I've got something to do and I'm excited to do it. Where are you the most passionate? When were you the most enthusiastic? Why? What were you doing? What was it? It wasn't necessarily the task. Maybe it was that you were working in a group. Maybe it was that you were learning, doing all new things. What was it that caused you to do that? When have you been the most confident in your job? When do you know that you are making a really big difference? When have you enjoyed your job the most? Don't get stuck just because you think that everything needs to change for happiness to follow. One thing at a time, that'll do it, right? And if you just focus on the little stuff, it's going to make a big difference. So you have a chance to sort of pause and admit that, yep, in a little bit of a rut here. Take a deep breath and say, I can be honest with myself. I'm going to look back and decide, what is it that I love to do? What changed with me? What changed with the company? What changed in thinking? I'm going to choose the right path and I'm going to do something about it. You always have choices when things aren't going your way. And this is the motivational me. And that choices are not going to come just like that. You're not going to know 4 minutes from now. You might not know 40 days from now what you need to do. But don't hold yourself back. According to Every Woman Network, they say that 70% of their members say that what is holding them back the most is the courage to make the changes. So I'm going to say you have choices. You can accept that you're just not happy, and that's okay. Find happiness elsewhere. Maybe you want to find it in your personal life. Maybe it's okay to say, this is just a job that's paying the bills. This is a pandemic. I'm not going to worry about not being engaged until this is over, because right now this is just so weird. I'm going to give myself permission to say, it's okay that I'm bored. It's okay that I'm in a rut. It's okay. It doesn't need to change. Or you're going to say, it's not okay. I need to find something. I need to figure out what it is. And then that's when you're working on the change. So you're changing what you're thinking. You're doing all that pondering. Or you say, I actually know what it is, and this job isn't what I need. I need to be part of those people out there looking for another job. You can accept it, let it go. You can actively work to figure out what it is that you need, or you can actively work and find another job. But what you can't actively do is sit there and complain about it, because that's just going to make your life and everyone else's life around you negative. So what I want to do is open it up to the Q&A portion and certainly answer all your questions. There is my contact information. For those of you that are executive assistants, administrative professionals of every sort, I promise you that every week I send out really good content, new content. I'm also offering the Admins Rock workshop. It's from the 22nd to the 26th of March online. You can attend anywhere in the world. If you go to adminsrock.com, you'll find that. For my Canadians on the line, we have the Canadian Administrative Professional of the Year Award. Nominations end Monday. So go nominate yourself. Go check out adminsrock.com and get all of that. Find me online everywhere. Send me an email if you want me to mail you one of those stickers. Just tell me whatever preferred mailing address and I'll happily send one to you, so you can put it on your forehead, on your phone, on your laptop, on your heart. And what I'd like to do is just send it back to Liz now and see what questions I didn't catch, or if you have any questions, please put them into the chat.
Thanks so much, Rhonda.
Thanks.
And I'll be sure to include that last slide that Rhonda provided in the follow-up email, so you guys have all of her information as well. That was so great. I think that the more and more the world is being what it is, it's just so important to focus on yourself, and it's so hard to prioritize that over anything, especially work. So thank you so much for really diving in deep on that. I think it's so important.
Thank you. Thank you.
And feel free, guys. We're going to run for about another 10 minutes, do Q&A. I have some notes from what you guys have said in the chat. First of all, I love that your husband is your EA. I think that's amazing. And if I didn't love you enough already, the fact that you love wine, automatically we're bonded for life.
We're in.
I think that's amazing. And it got me thinking, I wish I could remember who told me this, but someone told me to spend 20 minutes a day doing, it can either be nothing or reading, writing, doing whatever. And that's really helped. It's really helped me think about like what I need to work on, what I need to prioritize. I was wondering if there was anything that you do consistently. If, we always try to do those self-reflections and those check-ins. Is there anything you do to like keep that going or to jumpstart that on a regular basis?
That's an excellent question. So I did mention that I'm typically a runner. And so when the weather is not really cold outside, that's when I do all my thinking. So I do listen to music while I'm in there, but let's be honest, I know the tunes and I sing along. I get a million miles in my space, and that's where I do all my thinking. Now, because it's too cold to run outside and I really dislike running on a treadmill, I'm doing all that Beachbody stuff that I talked about it. And so I'm finding now what I need to do is I need to actively find that thinking time, because when I'm doing all the Beachbody stuff, I'm not thinking. I'm like counting 1, 2. Am I done yet? Like I'm so into it right now that I'm not getting that zen space. So I have to deliberately find that time. So what I've been doing is at the end of the day, Warren and I go for a walk every day, and we sit in the office all day. We're married, like you run out of things to talk about, right? And many times that those walks are just quiet. And so we live in the country now, so we just go get the mail, and it's, about a half a mile to go to get the mail and back. And so I find that I use that time to just kind of breathe and think about, what am I working on? What do I want? And so I do right now, it's not coming to me naturally. So I'm also a bath girl. So taking a bottle of wine and a bath by myself is a good way to do that. So I actively look for it, and I'm going to confess guilt that I'm not good enough yet at finding it because of the lockdown, but nature outside, time alone is where I do that. And I think, okay, what do I need next?
Totally. I agree. I mean, I think I never thought that like going to get the trash bins or taking my kids to daycare would be the time alone, but sometimes just those 10 minutes can really make a difference. We have a question from Cindy on YouTube. She's always had a servant heart, but recently hasn't been completely in that mindset. Do you have any tips to get back there?
Oh, great question, Cindy, and you're not alone. So part of the reason we lose that servant heart is that we don't see the impact that we're having. So if you're working from home or everybody's just in a tizzy, we don't necessarily see how we fit into the bigger picture. So one of the things that you need to do is really ask yourself, what am I doing right now and who's benefiting from it? So the fact that, you're creating a document for all the staff to, update on, what the new protocols are going to be on vaccines or whatever. So that may seem like a boring and not fun task, but ask yourself, who's getting, what benefit are they getting? And if you focus on the benefit that everyone is getting, that helps you give back a little bit more of that servant heart. Part of the problem is when we're working in sort of our vacuum, we don't see the impact that we're having. We don't hear people say, oh, thanks, that was great. Or did you do that? We just miss all of that. So you have to actively ask yourself, why am I doing this? What benefit is it providing for other people? So if I think about like creating this workshop, for instance, so why am I creating a workshop on career ruts? And I say to myself, because I know that there may be a couple hundred people who listen to this, but I know that one person is going to say, I'm going to do something about that. And that's enough for me to continue to create that servant heart. So think about how you're making their life easier, how you're giving them the information that you need, how that if you got hit by a bus tomorrow, somebody would actually notice. And we have to remind ourselves that.
Totally. And it's so important I think I always forget that in order to maintain your community, sometimes you have to put in that extra effort, even when you're feeling really low or just, I find myself like I'll feel lazy, unmotivated, and it's important to lean on that community. And a lot of you were asking about or saying that there aren't a lot of assistance in your area, or geographically you just don't have a community to cling on to. Of course, I'm going to plug the space community, but virtual communities are, even, when and if this vaccine gets rid of this horrible virus and all of its weird sibling viruses, I think these virtual communities are here to stay. I think it's been really, really important. Personally, for me, it's been fantastic. I'm not an assistant, but I literally don't know what I would do without you guys every week. I think it's just absolutely amazing, and meeting wonderful people like you, Rhonda. So do you have any tips for just avoiding that like Zoom fatigue or virtual fatigue, but still being involved within virtual communities?
So I actually will give you a tip, because I know that most of the world are stalkers. So they follow the virtual or the Zoom or anything, but they don't participate. So when I say participate, I mean, use your voice, turn your camera on, say something, use the chat. Like I'm sure that there's way more names watching this right now live than appear on the chat. And so you may be engaged in watching it, but it's a bit of a challenge to ask a question, to reach out to someone that you met, to say on a virtual, like a base conversation, or, any of the online groups, I disagree, or that's not how I do that, or I need help. Like, to really challenge yourself to stop being a stalker and challenge yourself to start being a participant.
Someone said to me, I've heard this a few times, that there's a difference, or start using the mindset of being curious versus feeling like you have to get involved or you have to learn something new. And that's something that I like to lean into, because it takes that pressure off. If you stay curious, you're more just discovering, seeing what works best for you. So maybe that mindset can help out with that as well.
Great. Absolutely. When you come across stuff that is too negative, too political, not for you, just keep scrolling. Don't take it personally.
I know. It's funny. I don't use Facebook on my personal. I think like a lot of my family and stuff, they're on Instagram or whatever, but like I'm on in this Facebook community every day, but I can't tell you the last time I looked at my personal Facebook feed. I think I just got overwhelmed. There's like so much. And as a marketer, I'm managing so much of that stuff anyways. I'm like, I don't have time to do it on my personal side. So that may be a tip for you guys too, because I know some of you said you like the community, but you're not on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook either, unless I'm in here. So pro tip. But we are running up on the last minute or two so here. So Rhonda, I wanted to thank you again and turn it to you for any last words that you'd like to share with our community today.
Just to let everybody know that, being stuck in a career rut happens to everyone. I'm willing to bet the Queen of England has moments when she wishes she wasn't the Queen of England. So we all go through these. They're normal. Reach out, ask for help if you need help. Recognize that where you are is where we've all been, and we can get out of it if we put a little bit of effort. So stop feeling guilty. You're not alone. You can do this. Why? Because admins rock.
That's right. Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much, Rhonda, and everyone else. I will be sending out that slide that Rhonda shared with her information on it in the follow-up email. And you can also find this recording if you want to revisit it under the announcements tab on Facebook. And if you're watching on YouTube, we have our Base Live playlist where we'll save everything. And I also dropped our event calendar in the comments, so you can check that out. I also have a really special announcement coming up for a month from now. Rhonda, I still need to talk to you about that. But just to tease that for you guys, we have some more fun coming your way with these virtual streams. So thank you so much again, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.